This is either going to be the jankiest audio feed, or maybe it might, or the worst, or maybe the best. I don't know. It's anyway. I'm just on my laptop, but I forgot to do an intro for Jennifer Miller Hammel, who is awesome, great friend, great colleague, amazing soprano, amazing singer, and incredible. She is living her dream right now um, as a host on KUSC and California Classical. Also is starting her own project, which she will talk about. And you can find out all about it on this episode of Strange Stories from the Stage. Enjoy.
Could be something crazy. Who
How,
knows?
how's my sound? Is it okay?
Yeah, you sound good.
Okay, good. Like apparently the my duet. I'm just rolling, by the way. We'll
That's
figure
fine.
this. I
Totally
I
fine.
always just hit. Yeah, this duet that I've had, this apogee duet, decent little interface. I've had it for. I'm looking down at it right now. Probably about 15 years, 12, and the screen now just doesn't work. So I'm pushing. There's got a big knob on it to
Mhm.
toggle, in inputs, outputs, volumes, all these things with just no reference. So I'm just like tap. So I'm literally. So I loaded. Yeah, I loaded a recording program so I can see levels
Mhm.
basically and make sure it's not going too hot into the red. But it's like real, it's like Braille. It's the Braille version of sound engineering and, total bullshit, by the way. It's like,
That's
yeah,
fine.
it's
We just sometimes we have to use sticks and newspaper and
as long
feel
as you,
around in the dark, and it's fine.
as
It's
long
fine.
as you can make the fire, it doesn't matter, right?
Right.
Like
Exactly.
there's different methods, yeah. But I it looks like I'm going to be making a purchase soon. You probably a used like a reverb going online reverb purchase to just because it's not pandemic anymore, so I don't care as much. I just want it to function. I
Right.
don't care. I just don't care. Yeah. So you are one of my oldest friends. I'm going to do a big intro on you before, but Jennifer Miller. First of all, I can't tell you how much admiration I have to the six people listening to my podcast, which I'm grateful for. I can't tell you how much admiration I have for you for finding your vocal home. I would say in so many ways, you've like me, I think, searched for a long time of what you really want to do with your life, and sometimes just things find you. And I think
Mhm.
this is one of those things uniquely that's found you, what you do now. And so we'll get into it a little bit.
Mhm.
But I have such admiration, and you've always such a beautiful speaking voice, and you know how much I'm a big fan of your voice and your vocal abilities anyway. So it's really cool that to me it's super cool that you found this hustle. Found this amazing like hustle of just you're still in the world of classical music.
Yeah.
You're like, and you're a huge fan and cheerleader for it now, but you're speaking through such a different lens that I think is so effective. Like you get to promote it in a way that you're literally in everybody's ears every morning.
To which I
On their
apologize and I say sorry, but no.
no, no, it's no. The ASMR is welcome. I mean, it's good. It's you have a very calming voice, and I think it's
Thanks.
good for the medium that people are taking in. For classical music, and also your brand. You're following your passion of video games. Can we just be like really honest about you?
Oh
You
yeah,
love video games, and
absolutely.
you love video game scores. And I
Mhm.
think just the fact that you've taken that and run with it and made it a thing, like of promotion, of digging deep into the scores, into the music, into the composers. And these are the people that often end up scoring like major feature films. And
Mhm.
honestly, to arguably some of these scores are better than many feature films. I mean,
Yeah,
you
I mean, there's definitely an argument to be made. Like when I've spoken to, because there have been some composers that have done it the other way around. Like they started out scoring television and movies,
yeah.
and then, somebody would come to them and be like, "Hey, have you ever thought about scoring a game?" And they're like, "What?" And so they go
Right.
the
They didn't
other
even
way.
know. Right.
And
Exactly.
and they find this sense of freedom with scoring a game because, in, as you know, having sung on many films, like usually the film score is one of the last things that's put on a film production. And so
That's right.
when you're in there recording, like you're singing to usually like an assembly edit of the film.
Yeah.
And so with gaming, though, depending on how the process is, it's different for every studio. But for a lot of, game companies, the composer or the audio designer, they're a collaborative part of the artistic team from day one. Enon Zor, who did the score for Starfield, I mean, that game was in development for 6, 7 years, and he was on board from day one.
Yeah, I was able to actually jump onto a
Mhm.
project of his for that, and watching, like, just going up to his house.
Yeah.
This, by the way, this is one of the biggest composers in LA and scores for many things. But the projects I've worked on with him is have been video game scores.
Yeah.
And Starfield was one of the biggest games of the year when it came out. I remember, and yeah, like he was so knee deep in it. When you walked into his booth, it was just everything was Starfield, and he wanted to show us the trailers and the thing. And I was like,
Yeah.
wow, you're really part of this. Whereas sometimes with exactly what you're saying with the scoring the films, you're one part of the one gear in the many gears of clocks that make it make it kind of work seamlessly. But yeah, no, he was definitely a big part of that game.
Yeah, and still is. Like even this morning, I think so they had a collaboration with Imagine Dragons too, where they created like a rock song for Starfield using themes that Enon had written.
That's so
And
badass.
and
That
then
is
this
so
morning,
badass.
yeah, like it was incredible. So they performed it at the Hollywood Bowl last year with full orchestra. Enon conducted the orchestra, and then this morning there was a rocket launch from Cape Canaveral in Florida, and this rocket is going up to the moon and is actually going to broadcast the Imagine Dragons song back from the moon to Earth, and it's going to be the first time any song has ever been broadcast from the moon, and it's going to be this collaboration between Enon and Imagine Dragons from Starfield, and it's just this
That gets me
really
nerdy. That's
cool
like
thing.
that's straight out of the movie Heavy Metal. It's like straight up with the Corvette in space, just blaring Sammy Hagar.
Totally.
It's exactly what that is to me.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. Like that's really cool. I see. I didn't know that obviously, but that's really cool. Good for him.
Yeah.
For Enon. Like they were gonna do. I remember like we had something. Well, I guess I probably can't talk about it, but there was a pop song that was kind of embedded in one of the versions of one of the trailers that we did, and I don't think it ever saw the light of day. So I don't even know if I can mention what it was, but.
I think I know what that is, and I
Yeah.
think it might have, but I'm not entirely sure.
Was there a Rocket Man reference ever? Okay, yeah, because
Yeah.
I know I did some pads for that at one point. Like in the back, just to steroid the whole thing up, just to beef it up. But there was some padding going on in the back of that choir to the Rocket Man. I just didn't know because depending on rights and all that kind of stuff, you never know what they can put into stuff and what they can't. But
Yeah, I think it got used in like an announcement trailer at one
nice.
point. But we'll have to ask Todd Howard at Bethesda what
Is
actually
that
happened there.
it?
Yeah,
Todd's the person to ask
he's
for that.
he's the head of Bethesda, so yeah, we can ask
Oh,
him.
okay, nice. So Jennifer, you are first of all, you're an amazing classical vocalist who's very well trained, and I think I did my first few gigs with you in town. I mean, I've known you just about as long as I've known anybody in town. I think after meeting maybe Abdiel, Gonzalez, and a few other singers and stuff, you were like the next person I met and got to gig with. And so I feel like we have a rich history of friendship and gigging and music and sharing memories and all these things. So I'm really grateful to have you today. And I just want to talk. We will rewind a little bit about like our performing lives, which we still kind of do. But do you have like when you were doing this sort of transition, like how did this all happen? Like
In terms of like getting into radio?
getting into radio and all that, when did you pull the trigger on that? How did that even come about? Did it fall into your lap? You say, "Oh, this seems cool," and then like you're like, "I love it," or how did it even come about? I'm
Yeah,
curious.
it was a complete fluke. So I was I had been in LA about 3 years, I think, at that point, and I had a couple of different like odd jobs. I came out originally working at Pomona College, and I knew that that job was only going to be for a year, and so I had to start looking for a gig like within 6 months of showing up in town. And so I was working for a couple of different outfits, and then I was registered with a temp agency. And while I was also temping, I was in rehearsals for a production of Faust. And I was singing Marguerite in that
Oh wow,
production, and
that's
that
a
was
big
opposite
role.
Omar Crook. Our friend was
Ah,
my Faust,
yes,
so
our
it
good
was
friend Omar Crook.
Omar, who was just fantastic and a wonderful stage partner and
Yeah.
pretend opera boyfriend. And yeah, no, it was great. And I say that because it's significant because we were, knee deep in rehearsals and we were about a month out from opening. And I was originally only supposed to cover the role, and then I ended up doing it. So I get a call one morning after a very, very long rehearsal, and I'm exhausted, and I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to answer the phone." But then I look at my cell phone, and it's my temp agency, and I'm like, "Okay, fine."
Oh, okay.
So I answer it, and the woman on the line was like, "Hey, we have this 1 day thing today over at KPCC, which is the NPR station here in LA. Would you be interested?" And for a brief second, I'm like, man, I could really use this day to go over my score. I really got.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I could use the money. So I said, yeah, sure, yeah, sign me up. I'll be there. Let them know I'll be there in an hour. And I went, and I was working the front desk, so it was like not even something related to what I'm doing now. And I loved it. I loved the vibe. I loved the atmosphere. I had never worked in a broadcast outfit like that before. I was like, man, I really, really want to come back here.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting a longer term temp thing there through my agency, which led to an internship at KPCC, which led to a full time job. Like it took a couple of years, but it was like, but again, it was doing something that was not related to being on the air. I was just, it at least put me in a position to really learn about how radio functions, like the
You
nuts
kind
and
of like,
bolts.
yeah, you sort of fetched the coffee.
Yeah.
I mean, not really, but like that was that's the metaphor. You're
Yeah.
fetching the coffee for seeing how the sausage was made for 2 years, basically. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. So really what the job was is that I learned how to schedule every single audio element that you hear on the air, like that station ID, that little spot that talks about the LA Phil. Like I learned how to schedule all of those things down to the second. So it was like it definitely used that sort of like puzzly side of my brain that gets, clicked in when I play a video game. So for me, it was like putting a puzzle together every day. And I did that full time for KPCC, LAist, as they're known now. I did that for them for almost 10 years.
Wow.
But while I was there, I also got thrown onto a microphone at one point because they're like, hey, we want to record some spots wishing our listeners Merry Christmas. And so they were taking each
Nice.
department and putting them on the air. And so they threw me on. And the producer, like, he did one take. He stopped and he looked at me and he goes, have you had training? And I was like, being like singing? Because yes. Acting? Yes. He's like, no. Broadcast training? No, none. He's like, okay. And then he just sort of filed that away, didn't say anything else. The spot ran. And then all of a sudden I started getting requests to voice spots for classical music orgs that were buying time with us. So
Nice.
LA Phil, LA Master Chorale, Long Beach Opera, all of our friends.
Hmm.
Because they're like, oh, well, you've got classical music background, you know how to say these really difficult names like,
You've had a
Cosmic
diction
Connection
class,
Suite.
and
Oh,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I could do all that. I know how to
all
say
that stuff.
Gustavo Dudamel, yeah.
Exactly.
Um, and so, I did that. And then I was like, God, this is really fun. And so they put out an open call one day at work at KPCC for people who were interested in getting on the microphone and hosting Pledge Drive. And what was cool about Pledge Drives there is that they don't just have the normal voices that you hear on the air, like the news hosts or the reporters. They would reach out to folks that worked behind the scenes. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And yeah, so I got picked to do membership drive, and I ended up and that's where I really got a lot of my live radio training, was asking people for money.
Yeah, right. Because you had to be online, and
Yeah.
you had to be on the mic and ask people and sound normal,
Hmm.
but at the same time convince people that the thing to do would be to give money to the station.
Right. And then learn to tell those stories about why you should give, what's important about the news format. Because again, LAist is an NPR station. And so, but what was also really cool is that I got to work opposite some incredible legends in LA radio here, like, Nick Roman, who's the evening host there, John Raby, Steve
And they've been doing
Julian.
it for so long. I mean,
Yeah.
and people that we've been listening to for years,
Yeah.
online. I mean, I have because of classical music, and I'm a nerd that way. I love that
Mhm.
stuff. So yeah, of course,
Yeah.
that's incredible.
Yeah. So, getting to work with them and like really learn to watch them hone do their craft and learn from them. And then, and then they would give me really like lovely feedback about my work. They're like, yeah, you're just like, you're a natural at this. Have you ever thought about doing it full time? And at that point, it's like, it's sort of like, okay, you're the PA. And you're looking at the lead actor in the film and you're
Hmm.
like, I want to do that. And that's kind of how I felt at that point. I was like, yeah, I'm like, the first assistant or something. And there's no way I'm ever going to get the lead in the film.
Yeah,
That's
you're
just
playing like, yeah, exactly. You're playing AAA ball, and you're looking at,
totally.
yeah,
Yeah. But it got, and I kind of got the sense that it was never going to happen for me to be a host at LAist because they definitely look for a certain kind of person, usually someone who's had background in journalism. And I had some background in journalism at that point. Like I had written for blogs and websites based on video games, but I had never done anything in the news realm, not hard news.
yeah.
So, 2016 election happens. I'm working at NPR, so you can guess how that went.
Not
And
like it's going right now.
yeah, exactly. So like the day after the election, and we all come in just looking like we've been slapped in the face and just hungover and
Yeah.
angry. And at that point, I'm like, I don't know if I want to work here anymore. And it was nothing to do with the people I worked with because I have great colleagues there that I still love and I still talk to, but it was just like the vibe of being in the news world at that point was starting to get to be a lot for me. And so I started listening to more of the station I work at now at KUSC, and I started thinking like, well, maybe they've got a job doing broadcast scheduling over there. Let me go on and take a look. So I'm sitting there at my computer at work looking for jobs, because that's totally fine. That's totally cool to do.
I mean,
Yeah, it's fine. And I saw, I didn't see a job for scheduling, but I saw a job for a host. And I was like, oh, well, the worst they could say is no, right?
yeah. I mean, you never know until you try.
Right. And so I put together a reel of my voiceover work doing, because at that point I had done, just a bunch of spots, like a bunch of underwriting spots. I had done character voices for a few of the shows there. I had done this really cool voiceover for like an audio montage for Air Talk, which is like their signature news magazine. And then, of course, my work on the pledge drive. Put
So you
that
had
all
all this.
together.
You had all this material
I
already.
did.
It was, yeah.
I had it on my computer at work, and I sat there. I opened up Adobe Audition, and I just made a reel. And I talked to my friend John Raby, and I said, "What do you think? Do you think I have a chance at this?" And he's like, "I do, but let me put in a phone call." And he called Gail Eichenthal, who again is another, very well-known name here in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I know Gail. Sure.
Yeah, Gail has made history as a female radio host and presenter here in Los Angeles. She was the first woman to do a live broadcast from the LA Phil and the Hollywood Bowl. I mean,
I didn't know that. That's
yeah.
incredible. That's a big deal.
Yeah, she covered the O.J. Simpson trial for a couple of stations here in Los
Wow.
Angeles. Like she's a big name, and so John sent my reel over to her, and I'm like, oh God, and and she emailed me later that day. Like she listened to it and she emailed me like almost immediately, and she's like, "Do you have time for a phone call tomorrow?" And I said, "Sure." So I hopped into a studio the next day and I talked to her. I'm at work,
Yeah.
and she said, she's like, "You have that thing." She's like, I can't quite put, no one can ever put your finger on what exactly it is. She's like, "But I think you have real potential. I'm going to put in a good word for you." And then, that led to me then getting a part-time job at KUSC, which then eventually led to a full-time job. Long story short, that's where I am now.
That's where you're at. That's incredible. I think that's incredible. Did you have a lot of like reservations about not hanging up, but you do, like when you're doing classical music, like opera, you do sort of have to choose a lane. And it is sort of like, it is when you kind of let off the gas of it, it is sort of like putting your point shoes up on the shelf, and say, well, I did that for a little while, but here's the point shoes. I let my toes rest for a bit,
Yeah.
and I mean, I even feel that a little bit doing half ensemble work and half, solo work. I'm not grinding that solo work on every single day. I'm warming up as a soloist. I sing as a soloist, but I'm not having to physically go into a staging rehearsal as a soloist every single day and lay down a role in front of a conductor and in front of a room of admin, which is a different pressure, than maybe being half ensemblist. It's a different, I wouldn't say it's less or more. It's just different. So like I said, you have to choose a lane. How did that feel when did you feel okay about it? I mean, did you feel like, oh, you know what? Maybe I wanted to do this, but this is me. Was that more what it was? Or
Yeah, because I was starting to feel, and I think this is something that, all of us who get to a certain place in our lives as performers, I was starting to get to a point where I was like, okay, there are things that I had wanted to accomplish as a singer by a certain point in my life that just, for whatever reason, I had not been able to get into the Los Angeles Master Chorale. I had not been able to get into the LA Opera Chorus, which were two big things I had wanted to do. And for,
yeah,
whatever reason, it just never happened for me. And it was frustrating because it was like, I would always get like, oh, like almost there. And then it just like, I couldn't quite get across the finish line to get to those things.
one don't. I mean, just to like, sorry to go ahead and finish your statement. I'll pin this, but I have something to say.
Yeah. So, so I was starting to feel like, because my goal when I came to Los Angeles was that I wanted to be a session singer. I wanted to sing on movies. I wanted to sing on film, television, video games. That's what I really wanted to do. Because again, as you point, like my love really is in media. Like I love music for media. I love the whole process. And I've gotten to do some of that. I mean, you and I have done some video game gigs together.
Yeah, we have.
But I've never really got to do, because again, a lot of the kids that get called for film are in Master Chorale or they're affiliated with somebody, they're SAG. And, I never really got to that place. I mean, I've done so many other things, so I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
But it
The
never
grass
quite
is
happened.
always greener for sure. Like for
Totally.
all of us,
Yeah.
we all have these stories that talk about the things that the other person is doing, and you're like, yeah, trust me, I want to be in a booth talking about introducing classical music sometimes. So you're good. You FOMO both ways.
Well, and that's the thing, when I really started to find my groove here and figure out that like, okay, maybe I actually am okay at this. Maybe, I do have something to say that people want to listen to. I felt okay about it because like then I also, because, I do have a relationship with the LA Master Chorale now, and I do have a relationship with LA Opera, but they're different than how they would have been if I had come in as a vocal performer. I'm
Unique. It's a unique
Yeah.
relationship,
Exactly.
and it's actually in a way, it's a relationship that doesn't take your power away from you. And not to say that when you're an artist in any organization, you are working for that organization and representing that organization by way of your skill set. And if that skill set falters or whatever, you lose your power within that organization as an active member in a way, so it's like if you come through a third party lens, that's what I'm saying. You're kind of viewing it, but you're also adding to the organization in a very unique way that not somebody within that organization can necessarily offer because of your unique position.
Exactly.
I think that's special. I personally, I think that's cool. So I think in many ways you're in a really good position because you can really view it from the outside, but you're also kind of in the guts of it too,
That's not to say for anyone who's listening, if you want to call me up and say, hey, I've got this film score I want you to sing on, please do call me because I would come out in a heartbeat to do it. I'm available after 10 a.m.
That's what this is it. This is the plug. Go, 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 go.
After 10 a.m. every day, just call me up. I'll come out and I'll sing on your score.
Throw
But
your range out there if you need to. Throw your range.
I'm a sopralto. I was second soprano, first alto. I have a natural mixed belt all the way up to an F. Just call me up. It's fine.
Let's stop about. Okay, so I'm arguably the best. I'm just gonna throw the most buttery, bestest mixed belt I've heard. Naturally gifted to a singer in my life. and I've been across the board. Like I've been around a lot of mixed belters, and I teach mixed belt, and and I don't know what you're doing there, but it's real. Just don't change it. Whatever you do,
Thank you.
just don't mess with it.
I can't explain it. It's just
No,
there.
that's it. It's just one of those things where like some people just got it, and I swear every time I can. There are so many of my collegial friends that colleagues and friends that I've talked to that know you as well as I know you, and when you're not in the room, when we talk about you, it's not bad. First of all, secondly. Secondly, it's about your mixed belt. Usually we lead off, we're like, Jen Miller, she's so cool. That mixed belt. So it's always that mixed belt. It's always in that low. It always changes. It goes down an octave. You're like, man, Jen's great. That mixed belt. It always goes down into this breathy, like, holy shit voice. Cause we're like, we don't know what you're doing. And it's amazing. It happened with Tim the other week after you sang, you weren't there. You were over on the other side. I was like, damn, that mixed belt. She goes, oh, that mixed belt. Every time. He even says it, oh, that mixed belt. He's a tenor, he's way up there, and we're both talking about it. And Abdiel, same thing. So, yeah, your calling with that is still very, yeah. So hire her for a mixed belt, y'all. It's really good.
If you need someone who can do an Idina Menzel impression or sing
Yeah.
Idina Menzel rep, just call me.
Insane.
I do all of that.
Just
so,
insane. Yeah. I feel like I was gonna say with this, when you're having to do you ever miss? I mean, do you miss like singing like opera? Do you miss that sometimes? Do you ever go back or I should say, first question is, do you feel like the imposter syndrome has started? You said I might be good at this. Now, I know with me going into comedy and stuff, it's still raging pretty strong. And even as a singer, it rages pretty strong. Like, what the hell am I doing here? Half the time I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, why do I even deserve to be here? I know every other singer in town, and I know their abilities, and I know how wonderful and incredible they are and how skilled they are. Why am I here? Do you still have that? I personally still have that. I don't know if it's a low self-esteem thing, but go.
I think it's good to have that healthy sense of like have a little bit of that imposter syndrome because I think
Yeah.
it keeps you fresh.
I do too.
Because then you never, and I had someone mention it to me the other day. They said, well, you never sound like you're phoning it in. And that's because I don't. Like, I want to make sure that every single day I go on the air, every single gig that I do, I'm not just half-assing it. Like, the people are getting 100% of what, even if I'm having a bad day, if I'm having a bad morning, which, we all do.
Yeah.
I don't want it to come across that way. I think there is like one side of this radio career that I'm still trying to like get used to, and that's the whole pre-concert talk, interview thing, because I work with two of the best in the business, Brian Lauritsen and Alan Chapman, who are just
amazing.
legends in this kind of gig. And comparatively, I haven't been doing these gigs as long, those pre-concert gigs, but I think I've found my style in that. Still trying to, in terms of the video game stuff, because I do go to a lot of video game conferences, and, when they see where I work, they're like, I work for a classical music radio station. Well, you kind of get that, like, why are you here? Like,
Yeah,
look.
right.
And then when I explain to them, what my role is, and they're like, oh, okay. But I still, like, sometimes I get there and I'm like, oh, I feel a little weird about being here because I'm like,
Right.
I don't write code. I'm not a sound designer. Like,
Right. I'm not in cosplay right now. Right.
yeah, exactly. I don't work in PR. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, sometimes I still, when I go to something like that, like I'm going to the Game Developers Conference in a couple of weeks, and I
That's
know
cool.
like I'm going to probably be the only weirdo from a radio station walking around there. But yeah.
I think that's unique though, because you have a piqued interest in all the forms and all the nooks and crannies within that business. It does help to develop your own voice as a broadcaster and as an interviewer, because you come with a unique knowledge of things based on your passion. You seek that information out. I'm sure just like Brian and Alan do with classical music, and that's their absolute passion, is they can talk to you about the rondo form, whatever it is, they can list that out. But like I think that's what you bring uniquely to the video game thing. And I think also it makes it makes a nice little Voltron of different kind, they all kind of fall in this mighty robot complete where it's like, okay, yeah, the arm is doing, the arm's going and doing the video games, and then the other, it's kind of incredible. And I think it's something also, it sets you apart from them in a good way. I'm sure in many ways it pays to bring new things to the table.
Yeah,
for
and
them.
I know for me too, like when I first started here, having, being someone who does work in the vocal scene here, even
Yeah.
still to a certain
Oh,
extent,
absolutely. You're very active still. Yeah.
it's cool to say, like, when I get a recording from the LA Master Chorale that features Lisa Edwards on piano, like I can talk
Yeah.
authentically about Lisa Darling because she's our
She's
very
our
good friend.
friend. Yeah. Yeah.
And or when I have Zenaida for a pre-concert talk at the LA Master Chorale, like she's someone I've known for many years, and it's great to just talk to her as a friend, and we can talk about her music. So I do think that there are unique things, having worked in this field and now working in radio, that I can, I have those relationships that came with me when I
Well, and
came.
also just the fact that podcasts and all that kind of stuff are so much more popular, which is more of a
Mhm.
candid conversation. You're really not, I mean, I don't know. When I listen to a podcast, I'm interested that they do, they're doing something similar, something I want to learn about. But really, I just want to get to the gooey center of that person and hear the conversation between two people. And like, what's that person like? It's like, so when you're able to offer a personal anecdote or a personal tidbit, I think it just makes it more authentic. It puts trust, I think, in the interviewer. If you know somebody, it puts the trust in the interviewer because you're like, okay, this person knows this person. This is going to be real. This is going to be real information. It's going to be also heartfelt, and
Yeah.
there's nothing better than hearing a heartfelt conversation between two friends. Honestly, I think
Or
I
sharing
can.
stories about cursed gigs that you've been.
Well, that's what's coming up, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I was like,
That's the
okay.
point. That's the point of this whole thing. But we had to break the ice somehow. So yeah, let's pivot. Let's do it. Talk to me about. This can be a booth moment if you want it to be, but you can also be just. Talk to me about a crazy moment that happened to you on stage, or this whole thing is about stories from the stage and things that have happened when it doesn't have to be when shit goes wrong necessarily. It doesn't have to be the thing that made you want to quit, or anything like that. I could talk about all those moments, and I to me it's all humor now because I'm able to laugh about going into comedy. I've just learned to lean into the fail and lean into the fact that tenors and singers in general are batting averages at best. So you even at best you're at 45%. So why are you trying to be a perfectionist about this anyway? Go ahead and fall into the the bed of thorns and clean up the wounds, and then laugh about it after they're cleaned up. It's like to
Right.
me. That I mean, not that I want to fail all the time, but like even a couple weeks ago when I was singing at church, I had a near fail where the car nearly flew off the road, and so it happens to all of us. I think still on a semi weekly basis where something like that, you're having to paint your way out of a corner.
Right. Right.
Can you offer? Do you have a story that you can think of of something that may have happened?
I mean, I have a pretty epic cursed Pirates of Penzance.
Oh, I love GNS. So please, because
Yes.
some of the best stories come from operetta. So
Yeah. So I had been in LA not even a year, I think, at this point. So this would have
is
been
this
back
a
in.
Richard Shelton story?
No.
Oh, dang it.
Well,
Okay. Well, maybe it was
maybe.
opera a la carte. Was it
No, it
opera?
was not opera a la
Okay.
carte.
Okay.
No, this was for like a one-off production company run by a guy who had done predominantly like choreography and music theater, but he'd also been like a television actor at the same
Fantastic.
time.
This is already sounding good. Fantastic.
Oh yeah, this is a gig, man. Okay, so yeah, I'd been in town about not quite a year. I was in a production of Mikado with Intimate Opera, which I don't think is around anymore.
No, but I remember them. I've
Mhm.
been around as long as you have, and I definitely remember that company. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was actually a really great production because I met Charlie Kim and Scott
Oh,
Levine on that production.
oh, God.
Yeah, and Amanda Koklo was on that
Yeah. Oh
too.
my
So
gosh.
yeah, it was a
Way
great
back.
a great production. So I was like, I really kind of had the GNS bug. It was my first GNS show.
Yeah.
And so I was poking around online while we were rehearsing for Mikado, and I saw that there were auditions coming up for a production of Pirates, and I was like, oh, great. I'm sort of like a pirate in general fangirl. Like I like pirate
I am
things.
too. I'm a pirate fangirl as well because
Yes. Oh,
I've done it many, many, many times, and I love that show. And I think
yeah.
it's the funniest of all of them personally. But
Well, it's
that's just my
great. And so I was like, I was 29 at the time, and I'm like, I could still probably go out. I couldn't go out for Mabel because I don't have those notes, but I was like, I could go out for one of the sisters, like, Kate or whatever, or Edith.
yeah, yeah. There's a
And
couple other ones that have some
yeah,
nice stuff. Yeah.
yeah. So, and it was one of these auditions, and I didn't know about this. It was one of those auditions at a dance rehearsal studio kind of audition. So when I say that, it's usually like, a caroling company or a music theater audition or something like that. And,
Yeah.
or like one of those open calls for a nationwide tour or something like that. So, and it was at Madeline Clark in North Hollywood. And I went out
I was
for
gonna
it.
say, was it one of those studios in Hollywood
Uh,
upstairs where you?
yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah.
So it was like, Madeline Clark, which is one of the older studios in town, and it has all
Yeah.
these weird little courtyards. And
Yeah. I think I know the studio.
yeah,
Anyway, go ahead. Keep going.
yeah. So I went out and I had prepared, I think they wanted us to bring a music theater song in, which I was like, that should have been my first cue, like not a GNS song, but they wanted a music theater song. And I was like, okay. So I went in with Somewhere from West Side Story
Great.
because
Great.
I sang it in high school. I did that role in my high school production of West Side Story. So went in, sang it. The audition went really well. And then there was a dance call. And I was like,
Ah.
okay. And as anyone who knows me knows, I joke about the fact that on that portion of my performance resume, I actually put moves well, does not dance. Like I actually
Yeah.
have that on there.
Nice.
And so, they taught us this very simple combination, which I'm sure anyone who even has any kind of like coordination between their head and their feet would probably get it. But of course, I was like, flipping around. And I was like,
Yeah.
there's no way I'm going to get this. And so,
Hey,
a
really
week-
quick,
Yeah.
continue this, but can we go past 12 on this? Are you okay to go like 12,
Yeah.
15, 12:30 or something
Totally
like that?
fine. Mhm.
Great. I just making sure. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I do the dance combo. The woman was probably going to be the dance captain and ended up being the dance captain for the show said, hey, thanks, and I was like, I'm not going to hear anything because my dance audition was terrible.
Yeah, yeah.
And I had specifically gone out for Kate, which was she's the mezzo-y sister
Yeah.
of the three.
Right.
So I continued to do my production of Mikado. My friend Juliana, who was in the production of Mikado with me, because we were doing chorus, I had encouraged her to audition too because she's got those beautiful floaty high notes, and I was like, you should go audition for Mabel.
Yeah.
Well, she ended up getting Mabel, and so she emailed me and she was like, hey, I got Mabel. Have you heard back from them? And I said, no, guess I didn't get it. And so we closed Mikado. They had their first rehearsals for Pirates. And then I get an email from them after the first rehearsal. One of their girls dropped out and they're like, are you interested? And I was like, sure. So I went in and I, kind of got thrown into this show at the last minute. The whole rehearsal process was just, nuts. It was run like this very disorganized, like insane.
Full like
It was
yeah,
just,
bad
you know,
community
I
theater.
had to go buy character shoes. Didn't own character shoes. I didn't know how
Oh,
to
man.
like scratch up character shoes. So of course I go in my brand new shoes and I slip and fall during
Yeah,
the
you
dance
didn't
rehearsal.
no rosin box to like muck it up or anything.
No, I
Yeah.
was just so green. I had no
Yeah.
idea what I was doing. And the
Right.
director was like, go temper your shoes. Like he was just really. So we finally get to the performances, and there were two cities we were performing in. You'll love this. So it was the California Theater in San Bernardino, which if you know anything about that part of town, like that theater is old and needs some help. And
Yeah.
in 2008, it was old and it needed help.
Yeah, I know that theater, actually. It's an
Yeah.
old movie theater.
It was an old like movie vaudeville theater.
Vaudeville theater.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's where the San Bernardino Symphony performs now. But
Yes.
because I did a gig with them anyway, it doesn't matter. But yes, I've been there. Yes.
Yeah, and so I just remember like we get there for Tech Week and which is the whole thing. And they actually told us don't leave the theater They're like, we'll bring in food for you. Don't leave the theater.
Okay, so it was not necessarily a savory area. Yeah.
No, it's not,
Yeah.
not a great part of town.
Not safe.
And apologies to anybody who lives in San Bernardino, but
No, no,
just,
no. I mean, listen, there are good parts of town and bad parts of town, and you can, or there, I will say there are safe parts of town and less safe parts of town, depending on what time of day it could be.
exactly.
Let's just be honest about it. Whatever.
So we get to the theater, we're in Tech Week, and I'm like, where's the orchestra? Because we had been rehearsing to tapes at this point. I think we had a pianist for like a couple of rehearsals, but we had been rehearsing to tapes. So I was like, where's the orchestra?
Oh, no.
And our music director, who's unfortunately his name escapes me, but that's probably a good thing as I get
It's
to
okay. We don't need to incriminate
Oh, because it's speaking of
it's going to
incrimination.
I feel like this is getting better. Yeah.
So it ended up what our music director, he was our orchestra. So he played a keyboard, a piano, and then he had like an electric drum set. So it was like those drum pads that you could just like tap and it
Yeah.
would make
The
sounds.
electric drum pads. Yeah.
So he was an orchestra of one playing 3 instruments.
So this is literally like Guffman, where the guy is playing the trumpet and banging the timpani,
Yes.
the da-da-da, doon, doon, doon. It was literally that.
Yeah. And we somehow made it through the shows in San Bernardino. We did a weekend there. I had a friend who drove all the way out to San Bernardino to see me, and he fell asleep halfway through the show because it was such a long drive and it was just had like no energy. I mean, we had some really great performers in that show. Harvey Gillen, who is in What We Do in the Shadows, was in that cast with
Oh, no
me.
way. That's hilarious.
If you go back and like again, if we ever make a
I love that
movie of
show.
this,
Yeah.
like he could play himself in
Yeah.
this because
Oh,
it's
that's amazing.
but yeah, like Harvey was in this. Some people that I'm still very close with, like, we have this shared trauma of doing the show. So San Bernardino goes fine.
Great.
A week goes by, and our next set of dates, the Pachanga Casino in Temecula.
Love it. Probably a nice theater, though.
Yeah, so we're like, okay, great. This is going to be like a legit theater with real dressing rooms, and maybe they will hire another instrumentalist to play with us. And
Play the
so
drums, at least. Yeah.
so we get out and we have a pickup rehearsal the day before we open, and he's there, he's playing in the pit. We're walking, we're doing a Vondelprobe on the just getting used to the new space, and then they tell us that we're free for the rest of the evening. And hello,
That was fun. That
Solomon.
was great.
That was Solomon
Hey,
Reynolds.
yes, and a good dance.
Yes. So we, they're like, you're free for the rest of the evening. Here's your call time for tomorrow. We're just going to run through a couple of musical things before we open the show. We're like,
Sure.
okay, fine. So it felt like, we had finally found a nice rhythm with the show. So go back to our hotel rooms. We're getting ready to I was rooming with Juliana, our Mabel, and we're getting ready to head over to the theater for our musical pickup rehearsal, and we start getting text messages and phone calls and emails that there's been an emergency.
Yes. What's the emergency?
So our music director was smoking pot, which, nowadays, great, no problem.
But back then it was illegal.
2008 at the Pachanga, which
Not
is on a
cool.
reservation, which is
Uh-oh.
federal property.
Uh-oh.
He was caught in the garage smoking weed and was arrested
The devil's lettuce.
and thrown in jail and was not going to be able to play for our shows.
So what are you going to do? You back to the tracks?
So this had happened at some point the night before.
Yeah.
So, and they didn't want to tell us till they had come up with a new plan. So,
Okay. Oh, so they'd already established it.
So
Yeah.
they started reaching out to people they knew, and they found some guy who, and apologies if he's listening, but they found someone who was then still a student at USC in the music program who said he had done a production of this show before and would easily be able to come out and at least play piano. He wasn't going to be able to do any of the drums or anything, but he could at least play the piano for us for this weekend so we could get through the weekends because we had sold tickets. We're like,
Yeah,
we wanted to get paid. We wanted to,
It was a real show. Yeah.
Yeah. So he drove out to Temecula. We didn't get to do any kind of rehearsal with him, so we had no idea what he was going to sound like. We didn't even get to talk to him. And so the first half of the show was a little wonky because his tempos were a little all over the place. It kind of seemed like he maybe didn't know how to do the show, but we were
Sure.
like, it's fine. We struggled, we got through it. So the second half of Pirates of Penzance opens with the sisters singing this beautiful
It
soft
sure
lullaby.
does. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
this lovely moment.
Beautiful moment.
And so we go to start the second half. We're all lined up backstage. Our stage manager is, giving us our cue to go on. And then all of a sudden the music comes in and it's like 10 times too fast. And we're just standing there all looking at each other like, do we go? Like, what do we do? And you could tell, like, at this point, like the six of us who were the sisters, you could tell that we were just like of one brain because we had been just through this process for,
Right.
I think we've been living with this production now for about a month at this
Oh, God.
point, and all just the shenanigans. And so we all just go in and in unison, we didn't even count it off to each other. We all just start singing at the right tempo, and he figured it out and he slowed down. But it's one of those things where you're like, oh
You don't
my
know how it's going
God.
to end. Yeah.
And as our stage manager is like cueing us to go on, she's like, "Go with God, ladies." We're just
Holy
like,
shit.
"No, yeah,
That's insane. Like, and you
yeah."
were, did the rest of the show go okay? I mean, were you able to get through it and
We
everything?
were
And
able to get through the end, and we had a matinee the next day because it was only two shows
yeah.
in Temecula, and we made it through. And our replacement music director, I remember him being a very talented musician, but
Yeah.
I think he might have exaggerated his knowledge of the Pirates of Penzance when he took the gig.
Well, you probably needed a gig,
Yeah, yeah.
and I did one of those. My first thing with Josh Shaw that I'd ever did was he had met me, I think by proxy of Opera a la carte. Somehow we had met each other, and he was still singing, and I was I was just getting into town, and he's like, we lost some choristers for this Mikado. We need choristers for this Mikado. Do you know Mikado? Well, I had only sung Nanki Poo, but of course I did what this pianist did at USC. I was like, oh fuck yeah, I know that, yeah, and
How hard can the choruses in Mikado
that's
be,
what I say.
right?
How fucking hard? If I've sung the lead, how hard can this shit actually be? You do half of it anyway as a lead, right? Well, the thing they don't really tell you is that if you're not the lead, you have to do that choreography well. If you're the lead, they give you a pass. You're like, well, he's going to sing a
Yeah.
bunch of songs, and you just stand center, look pretty, and the rest we're gonna do the ooh da 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 da, and I was supposed to do the ooh da 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 ooh da da, and like Richard Sheldon, who it was an old just an old pissed off Brit all the time, who was doily cart very very rigid in the stylistic proceedings of any show that he put on, and I'm just some jackass coming in like cocky tenor going, yeah, I got it. And, we did two shows, two performances, two locations, similar performing arts type centers to these big fuck off houses, like 3,000 seats, something like that, and filling a good portion of them. And I was like an echo. Like it looked as if I had smoked pot and tried to like do the choreography by sight that night. Like it was like the fan would come out, and then I'd be like, oh yeah. and then they'd do this, I'd be like, hey, like about 3 seconds delay, it was really bad. And like my friends Abdiel, Ernie Alvarez, all, and Courtney,
Yep.
my wife, now all in the audience, all observing how badly I was failing at this thing, and getting yelled at by Richard and just like chastised. And Josh kind of goes, "Oh man, I thought you knew this." I was like, "Yeah, man, I know it." I didn't know it. I did not. Josh, I love you. I didn't know it. But
I love Josh.
I love Josh. Yeah, we should talk about that one time that we did a Pacific. Well, it was called. It was a Pacific Opera Project fundraiser before it was Pacific Opera Project. It was
Pacific
Coast Opera.
PCO, yes.
PCO.
Polycystic ovarian. No, no.
That's exactly. Well, may as well. But yeah, it was a little. Yeah, it was. I'm glad that this thing pivoted to where it ended up with Pacific Opera Project, and I think big props to Josh for driving that ship. You've done a wonderful job with this company, so Props to you, my friend. I hope to have you on. My goal is to have he and Scott on for a dual episode. So I'm plugging that
Prepare
now, y'all.
yourself. Prepare yourself.
Because Scott only said he would do it. Scott Levine said he would only do it if it was with somebody else, because he goes, I can't talk for that long. I'm like, you can. He goes, no, 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 no. I was like, what if I have you and Josh on? And he just stopped and looked at me. He goes, maybe. Maybe. I said, we'll do it at
Yeah.
Josh's house. We'll have it at the table. We'll crack some beers, what
I've
have you.
I've had Scott on the Pop podcast a few times, and yeah, he's just like
He locks up. Yeah.
well, he likes it better if he's got someone else to bounce off of.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
agree.
yeah.
So hopefully that'll happen. But anyway, Josh was, he was starting this company before he started the company, and he was doing a big fundraiser, and
Mhm.
he invited myself and you and Abdiel and Courtney to come help out. We were all living in, three of the four of us were living in Long Beach at the time, and and I'll never forget that we did a Bohem quartet, and Abdiel noticed the refreshment table.
Yes, he did.
Before we mounted the stage, and noticed there was an exorbitant amount of champagne, as did I,
Hmm.
and so a few of us imbibed on that before. And by the time we got to the quartet, all of us were kind of feeling it. Abdiel especially. That must have been and it's on YouTube, by the way. If
Yes.
you ever want to see it, it's on YouTube. But that may have been the funniest, most drunken quartet I've ever seen. And I didn't think it was that, not bad, but I didn't think it was that like falling off the rails. But then when I watched it afterwards, we were all falling off the rails on that thing. It
Oh
was
man,
really
no,
funny.
it was yeah, because I was Musetta, and then Courtney was Mimi.
Yeah. And I,
So you guys had your moments, and then Ab and
yeah,
I were having our moments. And Ab's a good
I don't,
kisser. I don't know if you knew that. He's
well,
great.
you found out that night.
I did. I did multiple times.
He was in his own, that was, if I can speak of one of my best friends, that was one of the funniest things. If you've ever seen like kind of an opera singer that's kind of feeling it, has had a few drinks, and then thinks they haven't, and goes out there and sings full tilt, pitches, volumes, all that stuff is kind of ambiguous at that point, and it just becomes kind of a fun scream fest. I personally hold that as one of my most, because first of all, I say that, but saying that Abdiel is probably one of the best singers that I've ever like, and
100%.
one of the most amazing baritones I've
Mhm.
ever made tone with. So to see all of us not at 100% was probably the best moment of my life, because
But man, we were having fun.
God, we thought we sounded so good.
Yes,
And then
we
we
did.
looked at the tape. We're like, oh, did you raise any money for this, Josh? Sorry. Also, we drank all the refreshments before we got to the finale.
Well, and
Just so you're
I
clear.
think that's when he was still making beer too.
It
So it was
was.
like
He was making beer.
he gave us each like a bottle of his beer too.
Yeah.
So we're just like,
That's
yeah.
right. I forgot. We had the beer. Oh my God. That was a great moment.
Mm.
That was such a good moment. Yeah, that was one of my good moments, I think, when I moved here, that happened on stage. That was one of my, was that one of your funniest moments on stage, do you
I
think?
think so, yeah, because like on that gig too, so I was singing Musetta, and then I was doing chorus stuff in like the Carmen numbers, but then he also had me singing the Lock May duet with Jesse Mamie, and then I was
Right, I remember that. It was a
so I
big
had to be
thing
all
for all of us.
sensitive. I had to like,
Yeah.
and so I was doing that, and then I sang Papagena also. So it
Yeah,
was
it was a svishin fuck. I mean, the whole thing for all of us, we were all singing like stuff that I'm like, I don't sing. Okay, yeah, I'll sing this. Fine, I guess.
And then
I'm
we
just,
all had to be very sensitive and precious on Make Our Garden Grow because I think we finished with that.
oh,
They
I
had us like all up
forgot.
and around, and because this was at it was at the First Congregation.
Yeah,
No, was it the
First
Adventist
Congo.
Church? Or First Congo in Long Beach, right?
Yeah, that really
Yeah,
nice church in Long. I mean,
yeah, that
it's
huge
huge,
sanctuary.
humongous sanctuary. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's actually beautiful. I love that sanctuary. But I mean, it's kind of run down a little bit, but
yeah.
like it's a great like space to sing in. Like it's cavernous, So anytime you like sing something loud, you feel like you're that much louder. It's
But these
incredible.
there's these pictures of us because they pop up because I think the gig was in February, so it like pops up on my Facebook
Right,
memories around that time.
right.
And so there's this picture of me and Jesse Mamie like backstage, and I think we had already started imbibing, and we're getting ready to go on and do Lock May, and we're both like, super, and then we have to go on and just be very nice and precious and
And we're in a church, which is also weird.
yeah.
I always find that it's weird when we do these like, we kind of do like some of these slutty scenes in a church because, and it's okay because it's opera. Don't you find that to be kind of funny? Like we're in a
Oh, yeah.
sanctuary. We're literally in a sanctuary. I'm like,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
No,
I think that's one of the funniest, most ironic things. Like, oh, we're doing Carmen. We're in a sanctuary. It's like,
or
okay,
like
great.
and this building doesn't exist anymore, but you've worked with Long Beach Opera as well, but we
Oh
used to
yeah,
rehearse at that Methodist church over there
yeah.
that's been torn down now, but just some of the like some of the stuff we had to do in those productions, and we're like, oh God, I'm rehearsing in this like cafetorium here at this
I was at a church cafetorium and I felt like that had probably been, at some point blessed in some
Mhm.
way, shape, or form. And some of, because we're doing new opera and stuff like that, some of the things that I had to say, because whether it be yeah, we were doing a thing about the military
Yeah.
and where we had to kind of like inhabit characters that would say just really, really offensive things. And now, if I were to say this on which I will not say on the podcast, obviously, but like I was having to say, racial slurs and all kinds of just stuff. I was like, I had a
Mhm.
really hard time. I was like, I have to say this on stage, in front of like some 70-year-old woman that could be like my grandma, who that literally was what happened. Like there was this lovely older woman sitting in the front row of the performance, and I'll never forget this. And some of the stuff I had to say for this opera that I did called Fallujah, which really reenacted Marines on duty in Fallujah in war times. That was and when they say things, and that's how they would cue it, like that's how our director at the time is like, oh, he was Austrian, he'd be like, okay, let's go to the blowjob aria, and you're like, oh God, okay.
It was Andreas.
Yeah, it's Andreas.
Yeah.
And there was this one line in the show called where he had to say where Arnold Geis had to say I had died in the show. I get
Mhm.
shot in the head and I'm out. I come back as a ghost, a mighty ghost. But
So,
like
so you were like the Fontaine of
I
this
was a
opera.
Fontaine. I
Yes.
came back.
Okay.
It really was. I came back in my falsetto. I was like, oh, it was really funny, but it was a beautiful. Actually, I really liked the show. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, Tobin Stokes, I like your show. You wrote me a beautiful aria. So, but like this was the funny part when I came back as the ghost. I always felt like, what is this? Like, come back as Casper, and I'm your best friend. You're gonna be okay. And I'm, it makes sense. Like if you have PTSD and you start like like you start channeling shit and start hearing things, that made total sense to me. Like I could see where that would be a thing, but at the same time, I'm behind the scrim going, ooh, that was funny. Anyway, I this other part of the opera where the line was like it was the F word, comma, and the guy's name Houston, so it's fuck Houston, like damn Houston, what are we gonna do about this? Like that was the vibe of the with the line. It was like, man. And it was like, fuck, Houston. And anyway, it was just happened to be a point in the score where everything stopped and it was a logical place to start. So Christoph's conducting, he's Belgian. Andreas is directing, he's Austrian. So they have sort of these European accents. And every time things would always fall off the rails right after this place, because it's hard musically where things were coming in on top of each other and stuff. Because okay, stop. Can we take it from fuck Houston? And then like Christoph would go, oh yeah, fuck Houston. And I'm just like, I'm sitting there supposed to be dead on the ground, and my colleagues are just looking at me in the eye going, and I'm like, I can't hold it. I'm like, because all I'm hearing is like, I gotta take it from fuck Houston. Fuck Houston. Where are we going from fuck Houston? And it's like, fuck Houston. All you hear is fuck Houston, fuck Houston, fuck Houston. And it's really hard to keep your shit together
Yeah.
in a new opera situation when you don't even know the interval anyway, because it's so hard to sing. And you're just, and you're literally going, fuck Houston, literally what you want to say. Anyway, That's just
Yeah.
funny things that happen on stage. That's my offering today of things that happened to me.
Well, I have one more costume snafu
Oh,
that I'll
please. I
share.
love a costume snafu. I
And
have
this
one to
is
share too. Yeah.
okay. And this is a Long Beach Opera one.
Yes.
So we were doing The Breasts of Tiresias, which is this, very out of the box Poulenc opera.
Yeah.
And I had a little like compromario thing in it. So at the
Great.
beginning of the second half, we're supposed to be like a whole bunch of the ensemble, like we're just like a bunch of babies that are walking in, and there's this chorus where it starts like "Caw, caw," like you're basically just like doing these octave cries. And
Yeah.
so I had this like whole solo thing. I was like the solo baby. Now, just for context, I'm 5'10". I have an inseam of 34. And our costumes for this show were Tyvek suits, like for this particular number. They had us wear these
Okay.
yellow Tyvek suits over top of we had these like mid-century, really cool, like Mad Men looking outfits. But then for this number, we had to wear these Tyvek suits. And then we had tutus.
This tracks.
This
Yeah.
is great. So I'm coming in, and the way we were not in the main theater there at the Terrace. It was that smaller theater, like that in the Thrust Theater that they have like
Yes,
upstairs.
it's not yeah, we did
The
Candide. The
center
center, I
theater.
think it is the center theater. We did Candide there. It's not
Yeah,
in the round, but it's like stadium seating up, and then the
yeah.
stage is down on the bottom. Yeah.
So the way that the second half opened is that they had me come in from the back since I was this like solo baby, and I would have to like slowly, very stiffly walk down the stairs and sing this whole like crybaby line thing. And
Yeah.
I'm in this Tyvek suit, which, Tyvek is basically what Priority Mail envelopes are made out of.
Yeah. It's like
Um,
I mean, it's basically cardboard. I
it's
mean,
basically like paper with like
yeah.
some fiber in it. And I'm walking down the stairs and I'm just singing my heart out, doing this whole thing. And then as I'm walking, all of a sudden I hear rip. And
What's underneath? What's underneath?
so at this point, because they had me in this dress that was like it had a like a petticoat underneath, and
Yeah.
I couldn't wear the dress underneath the Tyvek suits. So I had a bodysuit that I also had worn, but then
Yeah.
it was just basically like my bodysuit and my tights that I had on, and they were not dance tights, so they were not opaque, and so you just hear this rip, and then my friend who was like kind of behind me, the way that they had him walking in, he goes, Jen, and so I'm trying to like turn away because of course the audience is all around me, and so all they
Yeah.
have to do, like the guy on the end could just lean over and get like
Because
a
it's three
full.
sides and center. It's three
Yeah.
sides. Yeah.
And when we're walking down the aisles in between, where the audience is, so
Oh
all
yeah.
Bob, who's sitting there on the end, all he has to do is lean over and get a free show of
Right.
whatever underwear I'm wearing that day.
Oh
And so of
man.
course, immediately, like we're on, and there's this whole scene where we have to go in, we have to sit down on the ground, and of course, I go in and I sit down like a baby, and I'm supposed to be doing my baby thing and rolling around, and
Oh shit.
my suit just keeps tearing up the back. So finally, but the only thing that's like even trying to hold it together is that we had these tutus on that had elastic around the waist. So at least
Yeah. So it's
keeping
the
some of it
binding.
closed.
Yeah.
But I have to like roll around and act like a.
Oh
So I'm
God.
trying to do my best to still do the choreography that I was supposed to do. But I'm like, great, my suit is it's going to be shreds. Like,
Yeah, it looks like you walked into a paper shredder. Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, so they basically gave me the Tyvek suit that was probably meant for someone that's like 4'8", and they give it to the girl who's 5'10".
They're not known for their their costume budget
No,
necessarily. So
no.
I mean, or back then. I mean, they've
Different
gone
now.
through a lot of permutations, but yeah, back then, back in the day, it felt just like a little shy of community theater. Yeah, where you
Yeah.
had to we literally like where things felt like they were put together with duct tape. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I feel like for that show, because it was a double book it was like Breast of Tiresias and then Tears of a Knife, which there's no chorus in that, but they use the chorus as like scenery basically. So we had
Yeah,
these
kind of like you're basically supers. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that costume I wore for that show, they wanted us to wear like basically black proto goth sort of stuff. So I just like pulled stuff from like my days when I was a goth, and I just
Oh my
it was
God.
like a corset and high boots and like a whole thing. That was my own. I just used all my own stuff for that. But yeah.
Yeah, I've done that before where it's like if they don't, it's like if it's a non-union company or something like that, and you know that the show's going to be better if you bring this thing from home, you just do it because you know no one's going to like care enough.
Right.
It's one of those weird like professional things where if it's a smaller company and you know you can help out. And pop is like this too, and not in a bad way, but it's like if you know you can help out as an artist, it gives you the creativity to kind of add things, and they kind of let you go with it because you're like, well, yeah, we don't have like a super big budget anyway. That's kind of the point of this company. We're
Right.
kind of scrappy, which I totally appreciate. I'm not, but I think that's kind of cool in a way that sometimes because of that, the artist can get kind of scrappy too and grab something off their shelf at home and add it to a thing and make it like better, or make it more authentic artistically in this weirdly garage band style,
Well, and that's why it's always great to hire singers who are also cosplayers, because then you have
Yeah.
like this whole closet of stuff, which I do. So
Yeah, exactly. You do. You have all that stuff like for me, it's always like with the comedy stuff, I always have like some wig or something where I've done a sketch, or like when I did the Donald Trump role, I took it upon myself to like eBay buy some old Trump ties that were like made by him just to kind of like feel how creepy that was to wear it and be like, nah, let's do that. Let's live in this shit a little bit and see, like let's just own, like just owning that tie, which I wasn't like proud of buying it because everyone's like, how could you do that? I was like, well, I didn't buy it new. I said some asshole sold it to me on eBay, but I'm like, still like, why not? It's like, why not put yourself in an uncomfortable situation to portray a character that you don't necessarily believe in, but you've got to somehow, find a way to, I don't want to say but you've got to find something in there that you can relate to somehow,
Right, that you can
somewhere. You've got to find something.
connect
I don't
with.
care.
Yeah.
I know every progressive like, well, I see nothing. It's like, no, everyone's a human being. You got, as an actor, as an artist, that's your charge. You gotta lean against the stuff that you believe in and find something. And I think honestly, it makes us grow as people because it forces us to see sides that we don't want to see or don't want to really engage with, and realize that there is something in there that we do agree with, and then we have to we have to come to terms with the fact that we agree with something that we kind of go, oh God, what am I a monster now that I agree with that? Or I see that one thing that I can line up with this person I don't agree with in any way. It's like, it's really interesting.
I think you and Sebastian Stan should have that conversation about playing Trump. But yeah.
God, it's a really interesting, it's very, I have to look at it from a lens of, it's because of the story that it is. For those that don't know, I'm doing a role of Donald Trump in Central Park 5, and I've done it before. And it's basically, as I see it, it's quoting history, historical quotes, historical facts, historical person. How they want to throw it into the lens is up to the director and everything. And I usually I try and be sort of a moldable palette with a role like this because I don't know what the vision of the piece is yet. Right. I know the overall vision, but I don't know the specifics yet. So I'm trying to be kind of flexible in that. But obviously we know he's the bad guy in this, and that is not a hard stretch for me to play. But I was going to say my wardrobe fail. So like I was in undergrad. We were doing, I've told this story on the podcast one other time, but again, 6 people listen, so it's fine. You're hearing it. Most people are hearing it for the first time. I was doing a little night music, and I was playing the role of Henrik, which he's supposed to be going into the seminary. And so he's in this like tight black sort of like suit. I remember putting it on thinking, man, these pants just like go on real easy, but they're tight kind of, but something feels kind of just like real, like almost like athleisure or something. This is way back in the 90s, and so anyway, I remember pivoting on stage in performance. We gotten past tech, and all of a sudden, like, I felt the crotch just go, and it just like ripped open like grandly on stage. And I was in a position where the audience couldn't see it yet. But Petra could. And Petra basically she saw my penis basically. Cause I was wearing to cut to the chase. I was wearing these boxers that didn't have have a little button, you know,
Uh-huh.
where the, hey, what's going on? What are you guys doing? You know, and basically that's what happened. I didn't even know that he was curious down there. I didn't know he wanted to see what the weather was like. And I didn't even know he had checked the weather, but I thought he was inside in bed. And apparently he went, hey,
No, it
how
was a
are
day to
you?
explore.
He just opened the curtain and was like, I'm good, you know? And so I didn't know, but like I found out after cause I was in such a WTF stage after that had happened, you know, your adrenaline's going a mile a minute and you're just like, oh God, okay, tell the story, make sure they don't see your penis, tell the story, no penis, tell the story. That's all you're thinking the whole time. And you're kind of scooting off stage. And I remember them wheeling me off stage on a unit set, and then everybody just frantically said, give me the pants, give me the pants. And I didn't have to come back into those pants until after Week in the Country. It was my last thing on that. Luckily, it just happened to be
Good.
at a time when she could sew them up, but that was really embarrassing. And on the same production, the one person who was playing Anne decided to surprise me on opening night and stick her tongue down my throat. As a joke, you know, we're friends and we're theater friends. So the theater friends pull that shit, you know,
Of
like
course.
all the time.
Hmm.
And kind of a similar than as an Abdiel moment to you and the quartet.
Or
And
Omar and Faust. It happened to
yeah,
me.
of course, you know, it was a different time, y'all. It was a different time.
Yes, yes.
We said consent first. Come on. Anyway, so
And
like,
I love both of these guys too.
yeah,
So, you know.
it was a different time, but that was that was definitely one of my biggest, that production was laden with just tomfoolery, you know, like laden with tomfoolery, and I think she was trying to like. If we're going to just be really candid, I think she was trying to get a rise out of me. If we're going to be really, because everything was really like tight
Oh.
on me, and I think she was trying to like play a prank. Like I bet Todd will get wood basically if I do this, and
Hmm.
like, and everyone's going to see. And it was like it was a real like, it was a different time. We were all in our 20s and we were all just kind of doing that kind of stuff, but like, and partying and having a good time, but like
Yeah.
very theater life type thing back in my undergrad. But that was a very funny moment from that. I remember that's kind of the kind of pranks that theater folk, you know, play on one another, I would
You know,
say.
there's, find the time to slip the tongue and then hide the chicken. There's,
Yeah, pass the penny, hide the chicken, can of
yeah.
spam.
Uh-huh.
I was in a production of Pagliacci once where Jose Cura came and killed Netta with a rubber chicken instead of a knife. And it was at an A opera house. I was a young artist at the time, and the head of the opera company was side stage and basically just looked at me because he will never, never grace the stage of this opera company again. What's funny is like 2 years later, that guy basically ousted himself from the company,
Oh,
the,
well,
the the admin guy. Like it was,
what
you
happens when you
know,
don't have a sense of humor? Come on.
yeah, it really is. And it was funny enough. He was a failed character tenor, and you know why? Because like he probably wasn't funny, but like it was.
Mm-mm.
I thought the whole thing was hilarious. You know when Kura did that, I was like, oh my god, he just killed Netta with a rubber chicken on closing night, like it's a fucking high school production. And I said, and there's 3,500 seats filled because it's a real popular opera. You know, it's like it's.
Right.
I mean, he was a little unhinged. Like I did the first. I was the first villager in that piece, and he grabbed me by the shirt and basically dangled me over the pit for his aria. The first villager does some, you know, he's like, fuck you, kind of like gets him,
Yeah.
yeah, tells him a joke, right? And then, you know, Canio just goes, what did you just say to me? You know, is like, "Oh, you want to play? You know, and he was a big guy. And
Yeah.
I remember in performance, he grabbed me by the shirt and just goes, and I was like, and you know, we're on stage, it's performance. And I'm like, okay, you know, and I think my butthole didn't unclench for that whole act because I was
Yeah.
just like, or that whole scene, because I was just like, I don't know what he's going to do. And
Mhm.
to prove my point, he killed Netta with a rubber chicken. I don't know what it is with Canios in general. Like, I've seen some unhinged shit with Canios on stage live where they get into it and I'm like, dude, it's just a role. You know, it's like,
Canios, Rigolettos. Yeah.
yeah, Rigolettos
Yeah.
too. Yeah,
Hmm.
for sure. It's funny how opera can sometimes. We say sometimes the plots are shitty, but those are two operas where the plots are very real. I feel
Hmm.
like, you know,
Hmm.
and and not like a B movie, as I would
Right.
say. I think a lot of them are like a B movie. I'll go out on a limb and say that many operas are. It was like one of my bits. They're solved with a high note, and everyone's like, "Oh, that was lovely," you know.
Cozy what?
Yeah. Cozy. I mean, Cozy is interesting though. You know, Cozy kind of has this sitcom playfulness to it, where it's like if you want to play it in that way, it has enough Three's Company stupidity to, like, if you can just, like, yeah, it doesn't have to be, it can be sitcom real and not
Right.
like real, and then it's fun. I think like this production that I'm doing now at LA Opera is reset in the 30s, in a 30s country club, right? And it's super, it's like super fun. Like we're basically the supers, you know, so we're part of the country club. We sing
Right.
four lines, and the chorus sings four lines in the whole show, but we're just like, we're dancing around and having a good time, and watching these people just unravel, you know, before us. And it's very like spoiled children vibes. So like they're grand emotions. That are not realistic, you know, in the sense that, you know, very adolescent sort of like child vibes, you know, coming out of these people. And I think that's what makes it work. You know? Yes. While Cozy, I think Mozart, it doesn't work for today's society with the way that it was originally conceived by any means. It's very misogynistic and very like, you know, but the setting of the classes, I love that Mozart was so ahead of his time in that, and that structure holds true still, you know.
Well, see, and now I want Three's Company, the opera. I want
I do
that.
too. That, I mean,
Knocking
well,
on the door.
you just have like just that play, how Furley outside the door, you know, every episode hearing the play on words and thinking one thing's happening and then
Three's
not the
Company
other.
too.
You could totally do a Three's Company opera. I'm telling you, like that.
Let's get on that. Come on.
I'm down. I'm down. Let's workshop it. I'm totally down. I mean, especially now, like now that now I just want to make people laugh anyway. So it's
Right.
like, yeah. You got anything else? You any other stories you want to offer? You want to hear what my question that you said, oh, I'll get to try your question for the first time.
Yes.
The one I wanted to add to the podcast is like, if we were if we were college roommates, you know, like just bros, and
Yeah.
it was 1:30 a.m. and we were
Have
getting
some tequila and
and we
hanging
were
out.
have a tequiza, getting some tacos.
Right.
What would be your take on I was going to say, like, what would be your take on opera?
Oh God.
I don't
That's
know.
probably how I've just like, and being the host of the opera show here at KUSC, I should probably tread lightly on this.
Toe
But
the line.
But I mean, the way that I've always felt about opera is that in some cases, actually in a lot of cases, it's more fun to perform than watch.
Yeah, me too. Especially certain operas, like when
Yeah.
I've said, yeah, I feel that way about Albert Herring and Ariadne, actually, because I've been a part of both of those operas, and they're harder to watch than they are to be in. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, just because especially like I love performing modern opera. Like
Yeah.
the experiences I had at Long Beach Opera, even including my Tyvek suit tearing up the back. I always like I have so much fun. Like I talk about I did 3 shows with them and it was some
Yeah.
of the best times I ever had.
Agreed.
But then I
Agreed.
went to see Akhenaten when they did it. I wasn't able to do it because I had a conflict with another company. And Akhenaten is not, and of course, LA Opera's doing it next season. So, but you know, Akhenaten is a lot more fun probably to be in than it is to watch. But of course, it all depends on the production too. And I'm sure John Holiday is going to blow it out of the water. But
Well, I mean, Sean's incredible.
Yeah.
It does become. I agree with you that sometimes it does come down to the casting when it comes with certain pieces. And I also think it has to do with like your mood. It's like sometimes you just don't want to watch a comedy, and sometimes you don't want to watch a sitcom, and then sometimes you want to watch a horror movie. And I don't think we sometimes like talk about that. Like you're not always ready to watch an opera, you know, and you're not always ready to watch a new opera. You kind of have to be in the right mood to watch it to really like it. Just like anything you watch or take in, you're like, yeah, I could see where I'd like that comedy special, but I can't watch this right now. Like I don't like it right now. Maybe that's part of it too, that we don't all like talk about. It seems like a very simple thing, but it's true.
Yeah.
You know, like sometimes I'm not in the mood.
And that being said, everyone go see Aina tomorrow when LA Opera does it because it's going to be amazing. And
Oh my God.
I
Yeah.
did that show at Long Beach. It was the last show I did with
Oh,
them,
you did it.
and I did it. I had a comp Mario in it,
I
and
didn't realize that.
yeah, and I had that show's amazing.
Yeah.
And when they said that LA Opera is going to do it and Lena's directing it, and I was like,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah,
go
Courtney's
see
in,
Aina
my
tomorrow.
wife's in that show, and she's one of the Ninas, and
Yeah.
she's really excited
Hmm.
about that show. It looks incredible. I have friends that did it at the Met they said, and now I didn't realize you did it at Long Beach
At
Opera.
Long
So
Beach.
that's
Yeah.
three confessions of like this show looks super, and it looks super cool. Like I've seen some of the footage of the production that they're gonna
Mhm.
be doing, or pictures, and it looks incredible.
I mean, it grabs you musically, it just grabs you by the throat within the first 30 seconds because
That's
it just
great.
starts off with this like incredible rhythm and it just it's amazing. Go see it.
Yeah, go see it.
I
I mean,
can't wait to see it.
the new opera is a tough sell. I will say opera
Mhm.
is a tough sell, but like I always, one of the reasons I'm doing even this podcast is just to kind of talk about the nuts and bolts of stage performing, but especially to get into some of this opera talk a little bit because the majority of the people that I'll be interviewing have some sort of association with opera and
Mhm.
with stagecraft of opera and classical music and concert work and things like that. And it's not it should be highlighted more. There's a lot of relationship between that and musical theater and a lot of the shows that people go do and see. And also, like, we're all into weird stuff. Like, just go into something that's weird for you. Like, it might
Yeah.
be weird at first, but it's not. Like, we're just telling stories through music. And so I will say some of it's an acquired taste, but some of it's not.
Yeah.
And I will say, when you're introducing somebody to an opera, it is important that they go to something that is kind of like palatable for them. And then it's like, don't give someone a stout for their first beer.
Yeah,
Like,
no.
you know just as artists, I think we have to be careful about like who we invite to what, and say, well, you can't just go from 0 to 100. But
Well, it's like, do you take them to the very traditional production of Eugene Onegin, or you
right.
take them to the very fun Nintendo themed production of the Magic Flute that
You,
Pop does?
you take
It's
them to
like
Nintendo. That's
you
why,
take them to Super
yeah.
Flute. Yeah, exactly.
Anything that has as I say, anything that has an emotional cord to something outside of what you're seeing will help with
Mhm.
all that. Because otherwise, it's too much. You've got a different language. You've got different kinds of sounds coming at you at the same time. Then you got to read. It's like an assignment for people if they don't
Yeah.
have something that they can relate to. And nobody wants an assignment. Everyone wants TikTok. So it's like you've got to we've got to ease people into this so that it's our job too as artists to be like, yeah, okay, yeah, maybe don't go to this one, but maybe come to this one and then go to this one. It's like, I don't know. Maybe I'm full of shit. I am, but like
No, no, no. But like, no, you're right. It's like, okay, take them to the tutorial level, to use a video game analogy.
yeah,
Take them
like
to the tutorial level, and then as you get skill points, and
you gotta, like I honestly think that listening to opera is a skill set.
Mhm.
You kind of have to, just like listening to music is a skill set. Like the first time you pass somebody a record, you're like, yeah, what else do they play? What else do they, wow, yeah. It's like, but if I wanted to turn somebody on to Pink Floyd, I wouldn't necessarily give them Saucer Full of Secrets first. I would give them probably The
Mhm.
Wall or Dark Side of the Moon first and be like, I like that. And I'm like, okay, do you want to hear some of the weird shit? And then they're like, yeah, I do.
Well, no,
And,
you have to give them the wall, and then you have to make them watch the wall.
and there's certain preparatory things you
Yeah.
want to do before you watch that. So, yeah.
Yes.
I've heard.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
No, so have I. So have I.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
we've all heard it. Should we cut this thing? Should we stop this? I'm happy to keep talking, but if you need to go, we can go.
I should need to run because there's a lunch thing
Go get
happening.
free lunch.
Yeah, because we're in the middle of membership drive right now. So
Go do
yeah.
it. Go to work and go do things that are important. I'm so grateful that you came on this podcast
Thank
and just
you.
shared some stories. And we had some good ones today.
Yeah.
Yeah, some really good ones. And
Do you want me to like promote where people can hear me and
I
any of
do.
that?
That was the next thing, actually.
Okay.
Before we get off, I want you to be able to. First of all, I'd like you to because I don't feel like I can properly plug your video game project.
Yeah.
Would you plug that really hard? And also, would you also do your promotion of when you are on and when we can hear you so frequently.
Yeah. So I am the morning host on Classical California KUSC. So you can hear me Monday through Friday, 6 to 10 a.m. You can also hear me Saturday mornings before the Met, and then Sunday nights at 9 as the host of the KUSC Opera Show, which is also nationally syndicated, which is really cool. And in the summer, you can also hear me as the voice of the LA Opera broadcasts that we do nationwide here. And all that is, you can listen to us at 91.5 on terrestrial radio in LA. You can also check us out at KUSC.org and on the KUSC mobile app, or tell your smart speaker to play KUSC, because that's also a great way to do it. And on top of all of that, if that's not enough, I am also the host, creator, producer, curator of a very special stream that we do here at KUSC called Arcade, which is a really wonderful way to intersect the worlds of video game music and classical music. And what I did is that I built 14 hours of music that is constantly streaming. So anytime you tune in, you'll get a different section of it. But you'll hear me hosting like just some of the incredible cornerstones of classical music that have been used in video games. And then I mix that up with some incredible moments from video game music, like not just Mario or Zelda, but stuff that's been made for indie games, like the
God
music
of War
you need
type
to
stuff,
hear.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's God of War on there, but then there's like, little indie experiences like What Remains of Edith Finch, Everyone's Gone to the Rapture, little all kinds of incredible projects, but just composers that you don't normally hear in a concert hall. And I really want to take that idea and have companies get a little more brave with programming this way. So, and there's more on that coming in the next few weeks. I can't quite talk about it yet, but yeah, so, and again, you can find Arcade on our website, KUSC.org, and on the free mobile app. So, yeah.
That's awesome. There's no Twitch link, is there? There's no Twitch or anything like that where they can
No,
tune into it on Twitch?
No, because we have a Twitch, but we'd have to be constantly running it there.
You have to run it all the time. Yeah.
But the best way to get it, honestly, our mobile app works with your car radio. So if you want to listen to it in your car, you can just Bluetooth the app to your car, and it's got Apple CarPlay and Google Radio, Google Car stuff. So it'll all pop up, so you know what you're listening to. And
I've used it on my CarPlay before. It works really, really well, actually. Yeah. So check it out, because she's amazing. She's a good friend, and she also is creating things from scratch based on her passions, which is also what this podcast is all about. So, Jen, as a friend, I just absolutely love and adore you. And I think I'm so thankful that you came on today. And I'm so glad that we are working together. We work together at a church weekly, singing. We're ringers for their choir and get to,
we've
help
hooked you
out.
Back in. You're back. So.
I'm so glad to be back. And it's nice. It's such a good group of people and just great group of people to make music with and just hang with. So I'm glad to be back. Anyway, and glad to get to see you every week. It's really awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
All right, Jennifer Miller, thank you so much. Talk to you all soon. Thanks for coming on Strange Stories from the Stage. Thank you for coming on Strange Stories from the Stage. My name is Todd Strange. Oh, that's really you.
Thank you for coming on to Strange Stories, or thank you for listening to Strange Stories from the Stage. This is Todd Strange.
Do it. Sign off for me, and that will be it.
There you go. Okay,
you get to do it. You get to do it, because I can't do it as well.
You've been listening to Strange Stories from the Stage with your host, Todd Strange. Have a good one.